and the United States were used to exclude immigrants of Asian origin. The incident resonates till today. Indians in Canada were very unhappy with the new regulations which had been put into force in 1908 preventing Indian immigrants to Canada. An enterprising and resourceful Indian in Singapore, Gurdeep Singh, chartered a Japanese vessel Kamangata Maru to circumvent the Canadian exclusionary regulations and brought 376 passengers, 346, 24 Muslims and 12 Hindus, all British subjects. In May 1914, the Canadian government refused disembarking of the ship at Vancouver. The Indian community in Canada was outraged, rallied in support of the passengers and brought legal recourse. After a 2-month legal wrangling, only 24 passengers were allowed to immigrate to Canada, and the ship was forced to sail back to Baji Baji, Calcutta, India on July 23, 1914. The action of the Canadian government created bitterness, frustration and vengefulness not only among the passengers but also among the Indian people in Canada and the USA. Before Kamangata Maru reached India, British authorities had enacted a new law, Ingress into India Ordinance, on September 5, 1914, which empowered the Punjab government to check the people entering India. The government was also empowered to confine their movements to their villages or imprison them without trial. On reaching Baji Baji harbour near Calcutta on September 29, 1914, the British Indian government warned to transport the incoming passengers to Punjab, while most of the passengers wanted to stay and find employment in Calcutta. When the arriving passengers refused to board the special train for Punjab, the police opened fire on them, resulting in the death of 19 passengers. The police also arrested over 200 passengers and put them in prison. The brutal treatment of the returning passengers generated a wave of resentment against the British government. The Kamangata Maru incident encouraged new converts to the Ghadar movement, not only from North America but Indians from all over the world, and gave impetus to the Ghadar movement. Some of the passengers of the ship also turned Ghadarites themselves.
Please tell us about the Hindu-German conspiracy.
British government could not tolerate the popularity of Ghadar movement among overseas Indians. After World War I, Britain started pressuring the United States government to suppress Ghadar party activities in the United States. American authorities, however, were not fully convinced to act against Ghadarites as they were not in violation of any US law. After the start of World War, in August 1914, several Ghadar party leaders, including President Som Singh Pakna and hundreds of Ghadarites, left for India to liberate their motherland from the British But by February 1915, the Ghadar movement had collapsed in India. America joined the Allies, Britain, France and Russia on April 6, 1917 to fight the World War I against Germany. The British government claimed that the continuation of Ghadar activities on American soil and Germany's helping Ghadarites violated the neutrality laws of America. The Americans arrested 105 people of various nationalities, including several Indians. However, only 35 people, 17 Indians, 9 Germans and 9 Americans were tried for conspiracy. The trial commenced in District Court in San Francisco on November 20th, 1917 and lasted until April 24, 1918. Over 100 witnesses from around the world were brought to testify. The judge found 15 Indians and 16 Germans and others guilty of violating the neutrality law of the United States. On April 30th, 1918, Indians were sentenced to serve from 22 months to 60 days in various prisons in America. Hindu-German conspiracy trial cost $3 million, described as the longest and most expensive trial in American legal history till that time. The US cost was estimated to be $450,000, while Britain spent over $2.5 million. The British authorities hope that the conviction of the Indian would result in their deportation to India after their release from jail. After deportation to India, the British could try them and give them death sentence or life imprisonment as they did with other Ghadarites. Deportation proceedings were started against some Ghadar leaders after their release from jail. However, due to relentless work by some community activists, particularly by Friends of Freedom for India, formed in 1918 by Agnes Smedley and Shailendra Ghosh, deportation proceedings were stopped and lives of those Ghadar heroes were saved.
We understand that Indians in the early part of the 20th century faced much discrimination and were denied citizenship of America due to the racial policies prevalent at the time. Please talk us through this.
Americans were European ancestry, so there was no need for laws to regulate immigration from Europe. However, when the Asians started arriving, the US passed Naturalization Act of 1870 that denied Asians the right to become naturalized citizens. The new law was the first piece of discriminatory legislation against the people of Asia passed in the US Congress. The US citizenship conferred many political and social rights, but only Caucasian immigrants were eligible to apply. Some Indians considered to be Caucasian obtained US citizenship from 1908 to 1923 in different states. In 1923, the US Supreme Court decided that Indians, though Caucasians, were not white and were not eligible for US citizenship. The Supreme Court decision had demoralized effect on many Indian nationals. The economic impact of Indians was devastating, as they had to liquidate their land holdings at dramatically low prices. Indians continued to seek ways to regain citizenship rights, particularly when Chinese had to be granted such rights through education. It was a major task to convince some congressmen to introduce a bill of Congress for the grant of U.S. citizenship to a handful of Indians, about 2,000 or possibly 2,500 Indians. J.J. Singh of India League of America, Mubarak Ali Khan of the Indian Welfare League, Anup Singh, Haridas Mazumdar, Tarak Nath Das, and from California, Dalip Singh Sound of the India Association of America led the lobbying effect. They were able to successfully convince Connecticut Republican Congresswoman Claire Boothe Luce and New York Democrat Congressman Emanuel Celler, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, to jointly introduce a bill in Congress. However, convincing majority of the congressmen to pass the bill was an uphill task. For 4 years, the bill languished in the congressional committees, and Indians continued running into obstacles in finding a powerful ally to push it through Congress. President Roosevelt wrote letters to congressmen and senators, but some die-hard members of Congress and the American Federation of Labor would not relent in their opposition.
I keep in touch with my roots by indulging myself in all aspects of the Indian culture, including food, watching the movies. In fact, when I was younger, every summer my parents would take my sister and I to visit India, where we would see all our relatives and we'd get to partake in the beauty of the country. And it was truly amazing. Not only did we visit India, but every year my grandfather heads and organizes multiple functions that include a large part of the Indian community in Southern California. And I, along with my parents, personally volunteer at almost all of these events. And it's truly amazing to see the entire community and partake in the beautiful culture. So the Indian American Heritage Foundation every year conducts an organization in which they grant scholarships to high school graduates based on merit. Now, some of this merit is calculated on how well they do on a test about India. So these graduates have to learn about different aspects of India, including the history, the food, the languages, the wildlife, and it really encompasses a lot of aspects about their origin. So not only does this organization help fund high school graduates' future plans, but they also make sure that they keep in touch with the roots and their origin.
Eventually, the racial interpretation of the word Caucasian was reversed and the Luce-Celler bill helped Indians to get citizenship. Kindly elaborate on this, please.
In 1946, President Truman took special interest in its passage, and the Luce-Celler bill was enacted into the Immigration Act of 1946, conferring the rights of citizenship on the natives of India. President Truman invited some prominent Indians, Sardar J.J. Singh, President of the India League, and Dr. Anup Singh to the White House and signed the bill on July 2nd, 1946, which truly should be celebrated as the Independence Day by Indians in America. It was a great triumph for the Indian community that their relentless struggle for 23 years reversed the Supreme Court's racial interpretation of the word Caucasian. We should salute J.J. Singh, Mubarak Ali Khan, Dr. Anup Singh, Haridas Mazumdar, Tarak Nath Das, Dalip Singh Sand, and others who collectively guard us rights of U.S. citizenship. Grant of citizenship rights opened new opportunities for Indian nationals. They could leave our own land, which previously they could not, under the Asiatic exclusionary laws, they could take part in an election or even run for public office. They could go back for a visit to India or bring their spouses and minor children to the US. There was no more a bar on an Indian marrying an American citizen. Indians could immigrate legally up to 100 people annually and acquire US citizenship. Since the passage of the Luce-Seller Bill in 1946, American immigration laws have been modified several times. The new laws have brought waves of Indian immigrants who were educated and skilled. The last 50 years have seen exponential growth in the number of Indian immigrants, and the wave of new arrivals still goes unabated. Indians in America experienced bigotry, encountered discrimination, and suffered humiliation, and went through a long and painful struggle for parity, equality, and dignity until they gained the right of citizenship. Each individual faced unexpected and utterly harsh challenges, but gradually discovered new possibilities and realized that his or her own dreams that contributed to a brighter future for them and their children. They eventually found their earthly paradise, the United States of America.
I belong to several organizations, Indian organizations, and I went and specialized in diabetes. So I go and give lectures on diabetes and Indian diet, how to manage diabetes with Indian food, which is very high in carbohydrates. So I also belong to organizations where they celebrate India Independence Day every year, and I am quite active in the health fair. This is a free health fair that is provided to people.
Please talk us through philanthropy by Indian Americans in the US.
The United States, as per Forbes 2018 list, has 585 billionaires. Indian Americans are only 10 in the list, and none of them is in the list of top 200. Still, the community contributes $1 billion to charity. Ramesh Wadhwani, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and philanthropist with his net worth of $3.1 billion, committed to give away 80% of his wealth to charitable causes. Dr. Kiran C. Patel and his wife Dr. Pallavi Patel has gifted 240 million. Chandrika and Ranjan Tandon have donated 100 million to New York University School of Engineering. There are several more who have donated for projects in America, and several have endowed chairs in various American universities.
Likewise, please throw some light on their charity in India.
First generation Indian Americans are emotionally attached to India and constantly make efforts to reconnect with their Indian roots. Dr. Kumar Buhalian donated $20 million for hospital in Kerala. Raj Soin established a non-profit hospital in Haryana in memory of his father. Victor Menzies, retired senior vice chairman of Citigroup, donated $3 million to IIT Bombay. Prabhakant Sinha donated $2 million to his alma mater, IIT Kharagpur. Frank Islam gave donation of $2 million to Aligarh Muslim University. There are numerous examples of Indian Americans who have donated $1 million or more for causes in India dear to their hearts. Several people believe that their act of philanthropy keep them connected with their community back home. They donate for renovation of temples, upgrading of school buildings, and construction of sports arenas.
The presence of Indians in the political arena since the days of Judge Dilip Singh Sond is on the rise. Please give us an overview.
For the first time, 5 Indian Americans are serving in the US Congress. Indian Americans Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, Raja Krishnamurthy and Kamala Harris were elected to the United States Congress first time in 2016, while Amy Bera won the re-election to a third term. Judge Dilip Singh Sond became the